Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is The Story I'm Telling Myself, a podcast about uncovering the beliefs that hold us back and rewriting them with truth, courage, and clarity. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Here we are in the middle of the week. It is Wednesday again, and you've landed at the story I'm telling myself. Thank you for joining me and our guest today, John Brooks. As you come into the comments, welcome, John, to the show. I'm going to turn the mic over to John. John, tell everybody about who you are.
Excellent. Rita, thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. So I'm John Brooks, CEO of Warehouse on Wheels. We basically provide a solution to folks in the supply chain when they need more space, when they need a cost-effective solution to help them move the goods that they push through their processes, whether it be manufacturing, distribution, reverse logistics. So excited to be here today and appreciate the opportunity.
I'm so happy that you said yes, and I'm very excited for this story that you are sharing with us today, because I think all of us have a little bit of a perfectionist somewhere inside of us. We may all not be slaves to our perfectionists, but we all have that judge, that perfectionist judge that beats us up when we don't follow the plan, when we don't do things exactly the way that they are supposed to happen. If you want to connect with John, by the way, LinkedIn is where he would love to connect with you. So it's JN Brooks SIV on LinkedIn, JN Brooks IV. So sorry, JN Brooks IV is where you're going to find him on LinkedIn, or you can find it in the thing. And I hate to say this, John, but despite my attempt to fix Facebook, it looks like we lost our Facebook people. So if your wife was going to come harass you on Facebook, she automatically got cut off.
Excellent.
All right. Let's get into the real content of this. So tell us a little bit, give us the setup of where your story begins, and then just walk us through what happens. And I'm just going to randomly interrupt you throughout.
Absolutely. Bring it on. Well, really, the story that I'm here to share today is a situation where I was late to something. And those that know me on this stream will find that somewhat humorous, because we have a general rule in our company about if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. But nonetheless, probably one of the most impactful experiences in my leadership development and my path to become a better leader was a situation where I showed up late to a large group dinner. And as I walked in the room, the only seat available was in the back corner between two guys that looked like they were out of central casting for the U.S. military. Clean cut, big, bulky guys that didn't look very comfortable in their suits. I thought, well, these guys are either bodyguards.
Let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
Who were you expecting to see? Like, if you had been on time, where would you have been in the room?
Yeah, so it was a meeting of CFOs, CEOs of private equity-backed companies. It was one of those annual gatherings we all go to where the portfolio companies come together. So sitting beside some out-of-shape guys in golf shirts, pretty much. So that's why these guys sort of stuck out. And I was like, they're either bodyguards for one of these CEOs, or they probably going to be pretty fun. So sat down between these two guys, and lo and behold, it was Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. For those that don't know, Jocko and Leif wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. Jocko's pretty ubiquitous right now with his podcast and his nutritional company and so forth. But back then, they were just getting started. And so as the dinner progressed...
I got to pause you again.
Sure.
We can't progress into the dinner. We're going to take this nice and slow. This is going to be a slow storytell here. So Brad might yell at you, but this is my show. This is the way we do it. So you walk in late. There's just this one seat. There's some non-typical looking people, and interestingly enough, your first thought is this could be fun, because a lot of people would not. I mean, was your intention to network, to connect, to maybe, do the power bro thing? I mean, is that the mindset that you had walking in, or were you really walking in looking for fun?
I think it was a corporate event. So I was expecting to hear about, playing golf at certain courses or exotic trips or whatever guys like to sort of brag about in those environments, which is really not my cup of tea. But yeah, so I had low expectations.
You were already somewhat a reluctant participant. Like, this it wouldn't be your first choice of a way to to spend an evening. Like, boy, do I feel that, John. I hated all those corporate dinners that I had to do. So, as shout out to anybody else out there listening who's like, yeah, the corporate dinner thing is not my thing.
Absolutely.
So you have this thought that these guys are going to be fun, but you also like what was your judge narrator saying to you? I mean, did you just really walk in and brush it off, hey, I'm late, or were you all caught up in your own internal beating yourself up conversation about the fact that you didn't make it on time?
Yeah, I think it was one of those I'm late. I don't ever like to be late. So I feel like, being late to something is, at least in my mind, a sign of disrespect to whoever the host is, the presenter,
I
whoever's
was
kind
raised
of
the same
running
way,
the show.
John. So
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where my mind was. And then, I'm kind of scouring the room because, again, it's one of those where, okay, who are you going to sit by and what are you going to have to endure, sort of thing, in this event. And I thought, well, this is going to be different. So, and it
Well,
was.
I think for so many of us, and tell me if you can relate to this, but I think in that situation, um, we can end up missing a lot of connection opportunity because we're just so stuck in that internal, beat yourself up. Oh, how do I need to fix this? Right. Like,
Right.
so you almost can't really be present because
Mhm.
so much of what's happening for you is happening inside of your head. Can you relate
Yeah.
to that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think in this particular instance, it was a big enough group where it wasn't so noticeable. So, but yeah, in the smaller group setting, absolutely. I definitely see what you're saying.
So you sit down at the table,
Mhm.
and is everybody else already in? Like, is this in the we're eating a meal and people are just conversing, or is there presentation at the stage? Like, what's the stage of this dinner that you are walking into?
Yeah, so everybody's being served. It's the meal portion. It's before any sort of more formal presentation and discussion. So very, very casual and just kind of getting going.
So you're joining a table of people that are already sort of in conversation, getting to know one another, that
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
absolutely. And interesting enough, there was a seat between those two guys, so they kind of got it and figured out that they're there for a purpose, to build a network and to share their story. And so I lucked into the seat right between
Wow, didn't fate take good care of you there? Like the universe, John,
them.
you
Absolutely did.
yeah, you got a favorable nod of the head from the universe on that one. Do you
Absolutely.
remember what where the conversation started? Like, did you find yourself giving excuses for being late or any of that, or do you remember how that
I think I
happened?
went right into introductions, and again, not having any perspective of who these guys were, and once they, mentioned being in the military, obviously thank them for their service. To me, that is something that I also always want to make a point of, because I appreciate what that sacrifice represents for both them and their families. So yeah, it was just those casual introductions and kind of asked me what I did, and then I asked them what they did, and then I pretty much shut up the rest of the time because I wanted to hear about what they did, and it was a very compelling, interesting story.
So, were you familiar with their book?
I was not. I actually didn't even know why they were there at the time. I believe the book either had just been released or maybe had not even yet been released. So it was in that sort of new phase. Everything was new.
So, as the saying goes, even in business, it was love at first sight, right? Or love at first words. Like you felt this real connection to these guys
Absolutely.
and their passion for their
Hmm.
work. So, for people that don't know, tell them a little bit more about the story that you learned about these gentlemen and why it spoke so deeply to you.
Yeah, so through the course of the meal, they were simply really telling me the story of they were in the service, they were, in Iraq, and really the Battle of Ramadi is kind of the core of their story. And so they were sharing with me, the details of some of that experience, and just really sort of hooked me with that story. And then, as many people will know, they actually were involved with Chris Kyle, the American sniper. So Leif, I believe, was his direct supervisor, if you will. I'm not given it proper military terms. And then Jocko was in charge of Leif and that bigger group. So that was interesting, an immediate connection because I knew the story of American Sniper and so forth. But really, the crux of it was when they got up and actually gave their talk. And this is something that doesn't really come out a lot in the book, but they tell a story about coming to the end of their deployment. And so they have, every night they're going out on these missions. They have this approach. They're really doing their due diligence. They're out there hand to hand in the streets, finding the bad guys, so to speak. Towards the end of their deployment, they had been narrowing in on their top target for the whole time that they had been there. And they had all the intel, they were ready to go, but it was time for them to leave and time for the next team to come in. And they literally talked amongst themselves the night before they're getting ready to leave and really thinking about, what are we doing here? We're ready, we're prepared, we have the intel, we know the situation, we've been here for months on end. Is it right for us to hand this off to the new guys who've never been here, who are new to the situation? And basically Jocko said a line, if not us, then who? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And thinking about in life in general, if not us, then who? And I've used that so often since then with my management teams, as people want to sort of whine and complain about, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? And the thought process. And it's so silly. I even think about it in my personal life when there's little things that need to be done. It's like, okay, if not me, then who, sort of thing, get after it. And it was just that moment. I wrote that down. I kept that piece of paper for the longest time as I went back to my life and running the business I was involved in at the time. But it just set in motion then this process where I absorbed the book, the concepts in the book, and really decided that when I was in the CEO chair, that was going to be the foundation of how we did things. And that's what we've done at Warehouse on Wheels. And we've had a tremendous blessed run. We've grown this business from 2 locations and 4,000 trailers in 2018 to 37 locations and 37,000 trailers as we sit here this morning. And I firmly believe it's because we have adopted that extreme ownership mindset, that we have pushed ownership to the very front lines of our business and how we serve our customers every day. And that's why I felt that I wanted to tell this story and make sure others understood that it's out there if they want to embrace that.
Well, and I think we're at a wonderfully important, pivotal time. I've been talking on my social channels. I'm having a really strong response to this nostalgic calling to go back to the way things used to be. And, the problem with nostalgia is that when we look backwards, we often see it with rose-colored glasses, right? We forget the real hardship of this. And so, and there's been several pieces in the news about CEOs and managers getting tougher and holding people more accountable and not being so nice anymore, all of these kinds of things. And I know, and that is misguided thinking.
Absolutely.
Because what I hear and I love that, if not us, who, when you as an organization, when you have that conversation, to me, you're rallying, it's not just ownership, you're rallying people around purpose and meaning.
Absolutely.
You're reconnecting them. And I think one of the biggest leadership gaps in organizations today is that gap of helping people stay connected to the significance and purpose, the things that bring meaning to the organization and to the individuals that make up the organization. Can you share with us a little bit like how that conversation of not us who, how does that really show up day to day inside of your organization?
Well, I try to actually start that the moment you join our team. So when you join our team, you actually receive a letter from me called the Ultimate Expectation. And in that letter, I talk about how you've been hired to do a job, but you've also been hired and empowered to do whatever it is in front of you that makes us safer, that improves our team members' environment and serves our customers. You don't have to ask permission to do those things. And so we start by defining that's the ultimate expectation. And then we treat employee engagement and morale like an operating process. We literally measure ourselves on a semi-annual basis and see how we're doing. So we use Gallup's Q12 questions as our benchmark. And I'm so proud of the fact that our January was our most recent survey period, and every one of our associates, except for one, completed the survey. So we had 99.9% participation. And in that survey, in addition to the 12 questions, we actually ask, what's the silliest thing we're doing as an organization? So we have kind of that self-deprecating humor where we're acknowledging we're doing some silly things. What are they? What's the single best idea you have to improve this company? And then why do you work here? And when you take those open responses and you literally take them in, you analyze them, you respond to them, that's how you really instill that culture, that understanding that we're in it together, that your voice matters, that you're being heard, and that's my job, is to make sure that happens. And then the last thing I'll share with you on this point is, when you come to work for us, every single employee gets my personal cell phone number. Now, my wife thinks I'm crazy when I do that sometimes, because folks take advantage of that. But I want people to have a direct line of communication to me. I don't have a burner phone. I don't have a work phone. It's the number my kids call me on. And you have the ability to contact me when the moment calls for it. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Did you talk to your boss? We got to honor the lines of authority. Have you tried to get a resolution? But in the end, the buck does stop with me when it comes to that culture and that sense of belonging, and that you matter and your voice will be heard.
And so for people that are unfamiliar with your organization, what size population are we talking
Sure.
about that you're giving out that number
Yeah.
to?
So 300 team members approximately today, and growing. And that's from Montreal, Canada to Monterrey, Mexico, and all across the US. So a bunch of different sites, 37 locations. That's kind of the size and scope of what we do.
So this is one of the reasons that I was so pleased that Brad introduced us, is that you stand for everything about leadership that I believe in and that I am trying to propagate in today's world of work. And so many leaders have this story that that's not my job.
Right.
And then they wonder why, as it flows down through the organization, other people are going, well, that's not my job. That's not my job. And so what was it that resonated so strongly in you? Because you grew up seeing those same models of leadership, of saying, that's not the way, it's got to be something different. Can you pinpoint for us what it was?
I think it was just frustration and not losing sight of that experience. Early in my career, with a big global accounting firm, I felt oftentimes that the partners had grown disconnected from what it was like to be on the front lines.
Okay, preach. If you're in the comments, like, here's the time you raise your hands, right? Because I think we have all felt that moment inside of organizations. Yes.
And what was so important to me is to not lose that perspective. So early on in my career, I was introduced to the concepts of emotional intelligence, because I didn't get it at first. Those that have known me for a long time, there was a bull in the china shop phase of my career that was probably pretty detrimental, quite honestly. I mean, I've been fired before.
Good on you to own that, John. Good on you to own that.
Yeah, so it's not this upward trajectory on the ladder. I've been knocked down, I've been fired, and so forth. And I've also been with companies that almost have succeeded in spite of the leadership, and those that have struggled because of it. And so all of that ball of information is what I try every day to do a better job at. Now, I'm woefully flawed, so I don't want anyone to hear this and think, okay, here's this guy thinking he's got it. I don't have it all figured out. And quite honestly, I admit that to my team on a regular basis. We have to figure this out. I don't have all the answers. I just want to ground it in some basic concepts. I want to make sure that we remember how important each other are in this process, and then let's go get after it and have a sense of urgency. So we have another thing. Some folks may have seen this on LinkedIn, but in our boardroom, I borrowed this from the folks at Chick-fil-A, but I have 2 board chairs. So these high back black leather chairs, I have 2 of them wrapped in bright red seat covers. And those two seats are meant to represent one, our team members and their families who aren't in the room when we're making decisions in there, and then our customers. And there's a sign on the wall. Now, some might say, well, why do you need a reminder? Well, I don't know that I necessarily need a physical reminder, but I also don't want to ever lose track of that. It's important to me, in my experience, that we sometimes do. And so I try to let my actions support all of this talk. And I think that's what really matters at the end of the day.
I wish I knew the episode number, but your red chairs, our guest, she was early in the podcast. So within like the first 20 episodes, if you ever want to go back and listen, Melissa Robinson Hussein, she talked about this. These are called positive triggers. Your red chairs are positive triggers. They are reminders. And when you see them, they're meant to evoke a certain connection for you, so that you never lose sight of that, and you invite that energy in to guide you from a positive space. And these things are so they're neuroscience. These are the things we're learning in neuroscience, and they are the tools that are available to us in a new century, which is why I just get so frustrated about all the backward looking and all the retraction that we're trying to do, because you are proof, John, that there is a smarter and a better way. There is an alternative way of being together in work that really elicits the best out of everyone involved.
Yeah, I
totally
agree.
And a part of what I hear you talking about is releasing of ego, letting go of some of the stories that we tell ourselves that are all about protecting or elevating ego. What is ego like inside of your organization?
Well, every Tuesday we have a call with all the general managers, so the 30 or so people that run our locations. I refer to them as our local market CEOs, because they can hire, fire, buy, and sell. And the opening 5 minutes, so everybody's kind of on board with 5 minutes early. So everybody's on kind of 5 minutes before we get started. And oftentimes in those sessions, somebody's giving me a hard time. So I've got one guy in particular, my guy in Memphis, Noel, who teases me about the size of my head, and I got a big head. And so we always have fun with that. So what I hope that shows is that in my title, and whatever that means to whoever that means it to, there's humility, and there's a willingness to accept that we're all just sort of in this together, guys. There's no, you have a title, but we're all in this together. And so I think that's a good example of how I try to set that tone, and we have fun with it at the same time. So it sort of checks everybody's ego.
Well, and inside of families, we tease one another. We love one another greatly, but we tease one another. Mm-hmm. There's respect inside of families, and we tease one another. And oftentimes people get uncomfortable about the analogies around family applied to work. But the truth is, all the dysfunction that can show up in a family will show up in the workplace, right? Because you spend so many hours together. But there's also the space to build that level of respect, and to build that mutual accountability, that, all of the same benefits that you get of being part of a family, right?
Yeah,
are also available to you.
Yeah, I think the one exception I would take is I'm pretty adamant with our guys about, we're a team, and we're trying to be a world championship team. Reed Hastings, the guy at Netflix, talks about this concept. I can't fire my mother. My mother can't fire me. Now, there's some days she probably wants to, but it's just not how it works. So while I appreciate that intimacy and that connection, I think you still get that same thing when you think about it in a team mentality, because you're not going to get fired for having a bad game, for throwing 4 interceptions in a big game. It's a thing over time. It's a performance and an expectation. And so that's the way we serve it up. Now, I absolutely understand and appreciate what you're saying, and I think there are nuances to that, but we really focus on the concept.
I'm not saying it's a one-to-one relationship. I'm just saying there are many parallels that are very helpful to understanding this.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's the other thing though about teams that is so fascinating is that in sports teams, the head coach loses their job when the team is underperforming.
That's right.
Right. And so it really resonated with me, the thing that you said about many companies perform despite the leadership. But the caveat I would add to that is for a time.
That's right.
Right. But
Yep.
teams, if you really buy into teamwork, which you do as the method that you're going to use to run your organization, then you understand that as the person leading that team at whatever level inside of the organization, you have to create the conditions that allow all the strengths of each of the players to come to the forefront and be utilized to their maximum. And if you can't figure out how to do that, then you're not providing the right level of leadership.
Yeah, I really call it harnessing their superpowers. So
Yep.
we'll do things where we'll have subject matter experts and things like that, where we actually will identify so that the team can associate that person with that superpower. And the good Lord has blessed me with a team of superheroes. So from my finance guy to my ops guy to my IT guy to the guy that runs M&A for us, they truly do have superpowers in those areas, and have been such the catalyst for the success that we've had.
So I want to go back to this whole episode. It is about, is being late a bad thing? And we had a lot of conversation about different ways to name this episode, but we chose to lean into that particular frame because, again, we often have stories that we tell ourselves when we think that we're disappointing ourselves or other people, that can sort of consume our mind share and can close us out to true listening, learning, and connection. But the other piece of that is that there's this magic in this moment, right? The universe taking care of you. You didn't walk into this experience expecting to receive some life altering wisdom that would become the foundation of the business that you own today, of the way that you're going to move forward in life, going forward. What do you think was it about where you were in your life journey at that moment that made it possible for those messages to implant in you in such a strong way?
Well, I was actually the CFO of that company at the time, and we were struggling from a cultural standpoint. There was a lot of change going on in the business. Um, there's a lot of grumbling, a lot of time wasted complaining, and just frustrations and dealing with a growing business. And so for me, it was that moment of clarity of, hey, this might be the code of how we figured this out. And so, went back to work and started working on it in my portion of the organization. But it was one of those where it wasn't necessarily everybody do everything and whatever needs to be done. It wasn't the ultimate expectation. It was, you're the finance guy, stay in your lane, do your thing kind of thing. And so that probably bred more frustration ultimately. But I think it was because there was just chaos and turmoil, and things just weren't right. The business was performing just fine, but there were cracks showing, and it was just this constant negativity. And so I think it was just, again, that fortuitous right moment in my life to say, this might actually, this might be the key here. It's really simple. If I can do it, if I can really commit to it from a leadership standpoint, it could be a difference maker. If not us, then who? So,
if not us, then who? But simple is often the path. Too many times we are looking for something that is complex and shiny and has a lot of features and when really all we need is something very simple. Because as human beings, what enables us to bring our best to any situation, it's a very simple formula. It's really not that complex.
Right.
It is only complex in that ego, environmental factors, life's training, all of these messaging. There's all kinds of messaging that gets in the way, right?
Right.
So it's like the code for our operating system is very, very simple, but it is easily attacked by malware. And there's all kinds of malware
Right.
happening for us.
Yeah, and it's sort of how we structure, even as we think about how we operate the business. There's basically five key measures that define whether or not we're successful. It's safety first, safety always. It's concepts around utilization for us. We use a term called 93-3, which means 93 of every 100 trailers need to be on rent, no more than 3 of them being worked on at any given time. There's a concept we use called 55 and 55. These are all Brooksisms, so I apologize, but I want a trailer to look good at 55 feet away and 55 miles an hour. So again, back to this extreme ownership, one of the key principles in the 4 laws of combat is simple. And that's what I'm trying to convey here, so that everybody understands, no matter where you're at in the 37 plus locations, as we try to grow to 100 locations, you understand the core operating principles of, am I focused on and doing the right things? And so in order to achieve decentralized command, another one of the 4 laws of combat, you have to keep it simple. And then it gets back into cover and move, which is this idea of teamwork and doing what needs to be done. So if you look at how we've created our operating system, if you will, within the organization, you can generally tie that link back to the four laws of combat. Again, keeps it simple for me, and I think it's easier to communicate.
Well, I love it, and I think that you will have inspired a lot of people to pick up this book and really consider their leadership style, and also maybe being a little more willing to be a little more forgiving on those moments of being late, recognizing that sometimes there's a gift hidden in there. But it's important, that we recognize that and let go of our story, that we have to be 5 minutes early all the time, right?
Okay, I'll admit it just this one time, but we need to edit this out on the recorded version in case any of our team members go back to it. I'm sure I'll hear
John,
that.
it has been a pleasure to hear this story. And you are an inspiring leader. You are the future of leadership. You are the model that I would love to see move into organizations across the world, because I think you are dialed in to what matters most about how to build a workplace where people are ready and willing to come and give their best every day. And congratulations to you. Job well done. And
Well, you're way too kind, because I'm just, I might be sitting at the front of the boat, but everybody else in the boat behind me is making it happen. So I sincerely appreciate your kindness.
But that's what leadership is. Leadership isn't about a self, and that is the story. That's where that ego gets in the way. Absolutely. Leaders, with too much in America, we have this idea that being at the top means centering self.
Right.
And you get it. It's not about centering you. That you are only made possible by all the people underneath of you who are the business. The people are the business.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And that's true no matter what your business is. You're never going to be any better than what you can elicit from the people who make up your workforce within your business. And so I look forward to following your journey and continuing to root for you guys, and to see the amazing stuff that you do as you continue to grow and serve. And thank you for coming and sharing your story on the story I'm telling myself. Just a reminder, we have one more bonus episode this week. We had to cancel Dr. Nikki Lanier on her originally scheduled guest appearance. So she is with us tomorrow, the 22nd at 4:30. We're going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about, do you listen to your fear? When do you listen to your fear? And how do you allow fear to be information without it overpowering your sensibility? And this is going to be a tremendously good episode with Nikki. So make sure that you come back. Let us share your commute with you. If you're on the East Coast on your way home tomorrow, just head out of the office a few minutes early, pop us on, and enjoy the conversation. So Brad, just saw you pop in. John is a great leader. He is, and understands the value of culture in motivating people, and also recommends the book. So what's the name of the book again, John?
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership. So get your copy of Extreme Ownership and give it a read. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brad, for being with us. And I will see you guys back here tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the story I'm telling myself. If you loved this episode, would you do us a big favor to help us reach a bigger audience? Simply subscribe to the Story I'm Telling Myself podcast and rate this episode and share it with a friend. Thank you for listening.